built-in analytics for website traffic and trends. David, super excited about this topic. Glad that we chose this one for this week. If it's okay, I can pass things over to you. We can kind of go over the slides, and then we can do a deep dive into some of these analytics that are accessible for everyone through their BD admin portal.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is an exciting one. Google Analytics and other website analytic platforms, they're great tools to really get a good, complete understanding of the behavior of your website visitors, how you can optimize different areas and pages of your website to meet your specific goals. However, if you don't want to use one of those more dedicated platforms, I know they can be a little bit overwhelming with all the features. There are some built-in options and statistics that we can really take a look at and give us actually a really great understanding of kind of core website traffic, how visitors are behaving on our website, and also give us an insight into some possible optimizations that we might want to do to our website, all with this built-in tool. So this is accessible within your website's Developer Hub. If you go to Developer Hub, cPanel dashboard, there is a tool in there, AWStats, that we can open up that will give us a really simple but relatively comprehensive kind of snapshot of our website traffic statistics. So this is built in, it's accessible with all BD websites. It doesn't require you to paste any code into your website's header or footer or install any third-party tools. And it really provides all of the necessary traffic statistics that you would find with any other dedicated website traffic analytics platform. So you'll still be able to see how many visitors your website's getting, page views, hits, which is a little bit different statistic. Hits would be anytime a request that requires some bandwidth usage on your website is taking place. So anytime a web page is visited, an image is downloaded, a file's downloaded, things like that. Overall bandwidth usage, what time of day and day of the week you're seeing a lot of traffic on your website. Website referrers, so what search engines are sending the most traffic to your website, what other websites are sending traffic to your website, the geolocation of website visitors, so which countries the majority of your website visitors are coming from, what operating system and browser your visitors are using, entry and exit pages, so you can get a better understanding of what pages might be performing really well that your website visitors are typically coming to first, and then also which web pages tend to be potentially the worst performing, where you're seeing a high exit rate on, in addition to a lot of other really useful statistics, but those are kind of the main ones there. So this tool, it's really simple to use, and it really does provide us with a general comprehensive view of website traffic that we can kind of take some actionable steps on, find some places that we can optimize. So before we get into a walkthrough of what this actually looks like on an actual website with some traffic, just wanted to go through some of those notable primary statistics. There's a lot that is provided with this analytics tool, but just wanted to quickly run through kind of the core features that you'll probably want to pay the most attention to. So one of them is peak hours. So you'll be able to see what time of day and also what day of week your website is seeing a lot of website traffic. So if you have some limited time banner announcements, promotions that you'll be running that you want to coincide with the time of day or the day of the week that you're getting typically the most amount of traffic, you'll be able to see that. You'll also be able to identify how much traffic is coming from specific countries. So maybe you're seeing a big spike in traffic from a specific country that you're not necessarily targeting. Doesn't mean necessarily that you want to block all traffic from it immediately, but if you notice that that trend persists, you might want to block traffic from that country if it's not one that you're targeting and it's using a lot of bandwidth. That's another statistic we can see is we'll be able to identify the different sources of bandwidth usage. So we can potentially see some outliers, maybe some things that we might want to be able to optimize. Also hosts. So this would be instead of countries where a lot of traffic is coming from, individual IP addresses that are using a lot of bandwidth. So oftentimes these hosts might be robots that are using the most bandwidth, not necessarily individual users. But again, you could always geolocate an IP address to get the location of an IP address. And if the IP address is located outside of one of your target countries, again, that might be a case where you might want to block that individual IP address But again, you do want to be a little bit careful with that. You don't necessarily want to block IP addresses of like search engine servers and things like that, because we do still want search engines to be able to scrape our websites, assuming we want to be listed in search engines. And then also going into robots, actually being able to identify high activity bots. And if we notice some robots that we're not familiar with, that we don't want being on our website, scraping our website, can go ahead and edit the robots.txt file if necessary. It's a little bit more advanced, but just another useful statistic there. File types can actually see the top file formats that are consuming the most bandwidth. So if you have a lot of ebooks, PDFs, things like that uploaded to your website that you're providing to your members, be able to actually see which ones have been downloaded the most. That goes right on into download, seeing which specific files are the most frequently downloaded by visitors. Pages, seeing which specific web pages are most viewed by visitors. You can also see the entry and exit points. So which pages tend to be the most common ones that visitors are coming to first. That probably means there's another website or a search engine that's directing traffic to that specific page. And also those exit pages. So which pages have high bounce rates? Maybe there's some things on those pages that we'll be able to optimize so that users stay on our website a little bit longer, go to some other web pages. Also be able to see the most common operating systems and web browsers that our visitors are using. So, if we happen to see, maybe we're putting a lot of resources into trying to optimize custom web pages for mobile devices. And if we're seeing maybe only 2, 3, 4% of website visitors are actually viewing those pages on mobile devices, maybe we don't need to spend as much time optimizing those pages for mobile, and we can use that time and other resources in some better ways. And then also refers, seeing which search engines and individual websites are directing the most traffic to our website. So this might be good to determine for search engines, maybe which search engines we want to contribute more funds to if we're going to be doing some PPC ad campaigns, or looking at the individual websites that are directing traffic to us. Maybe we'll want to reach out to the owners of those other websites, see if there's some mutually beneficial arrangement that we might be able to work on so that they can direct even more traffic to us, we can direct traffic to them, things like that. So there's a lot of really great information that's provided in this tool here. And we'll dive into kind of showing that in practice and how it actually looks with some website traffic data.
Yeah, thank you for putting this list together, David. I think a lot of this is going to come down to seeing the bandwidth usage of a site. Bandwidth is the resource that's most critical to websites. So let's dive in and let's show you exactly where you can access this analytics and this data inside your BD admin area. And we'll use the iLock Connect, this sample site here, just as kind of our guinea pig to look at some of the data. So we went from the dashboard, we went into the Developer Hub section, and we're going to trek into the cPanel dashboard here. So let's go there together. And when we're here, if you're not familiar with the cPanel dashboard, it is for more higher level domain management and things like that, email account management, and it's super useful. It actually unlocks a wealth of functionality and resources. In this case, we're going to use the search tool here. We're going to search for AWStats, and it's the top one here, and we'll go ahead and click on that. And then just find your domain name. If you have an SSL with your domain name, go ahead and click on the SSL version and click on View. So now we are in the stats section. So again, it's not the prettiest thing. It's a little crude. It's super basic. It's not a fancy Google Analytics with all these charts and graphs and things like that, which I'm a huge fan of Google Analytics. But the fact that we don't have to set up anything third party or other solutions, and this is just happening behind the scenes and we have this data, it's super valuable, especially if you just want to do a quick check-in and you're already in your admin area. With just a couple clicks, you can get familiar with how to get to this section. So there's a lot here, but we'll breeze through it. But just at the top here, you can search for monthly, daily, or hourly historical data based on the month and the year and so on. So as long as your site's been online, the data should exist for it. And just at the top here, so we're looking for at the entire month of February in this example. So, and again, these numbers are based on the server's tracking, the cPanel tracking. So it might differ if you're using third-party tools like Google Analytics or Hotjar or something else, the numbers aren't exactly matching, but this will give you a rough estimate of some of the behavior and activity that's happening on your site. So just at the top here, we can see the site's received about 4,000 unique visitors. Those are specific unique visitors. Number of visits, that could be the same unique visitor visiting multiple times. So you can see here the average visit is about 9 times per visitor. The number of pages that were viewed, number of hits. So hits is not just a page view, it's also when an image resource is requested, a file is downloaded, anything that's accessing an asset on your site, like an image, a file, or the page itself. And then total bandwidth usage. Now, what we're gonna see in this example, we're gonna see some countries that are utilizing a lot of bandwidth and traffic usage. And although that may seem alarming, if it's not pushing you over your monthly bandwidth limit, there's really no reason for alarm. Again, it's the World Wide Web. We can allow that traffic to move in and out freely from our site, especially if we're not seeing any spam or unwanted signups occurring as well. There really isn't any problem with other countries accessing our sites. But when we come here, we could scroll down and we have a month-by-month analysis here. This is for the year 2024. So again, you can compare your growth month over month, visitors, bandwidth usage, and you can see hopefully you're having some steady growth. And if you're not, maybe you want to focus more on search engine optimization, social media marketing, etc. And over here in the next section, you'll see the days of the month. So this is February 1st, and in this case, all the way through February 28th, which isn't done here. So we can see peak bandwidth usage happened on a couple of these days. This green marker here, bandwidth was 631. And over here on February 9th, bandwidth was 708. And it looks like there were a lot of hits on those days as well compared to the rest of the month. So we'll be able to see what may have contributed to those high bandwidth usage. Maybe it was like a Google bot or Microsoft Bing bot scraping the site so they can index some of the pages for their search results. Maybe it was an offender or some nefarious activity that we want to identify. So we're going to see how we can analyze that using the data here. And then what David was referring to, and I'll try to get these two in the same one, the day of the week and the hours. So basically we can see when our peak visitor times are. So in this case, we see Fridays are quite busy on this website compared to other days of the week. And sometimes there might be no variation. It might just be steady throughout. And then hours of the day. So 0 is basically midnight all the way through 11 p.m. So you can utilize this and you might see waves of peak times of traffic. And as David was mentioning, maybe depending on the day of the week. So maybe Fridays at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that's when you put a special banner on your site for a limited time promotion that you want to run. So that's just one use case and one way you can utilize the time when it comes to peak hours of visitors on your site. And here is a very important part that we were talking about. So this is the locales. This is the visits by country. And we can see here that China is the #1 visitor of this site for February. And we see that it utilized 2.63 gigabytes of bandwidth for the month of February. This is generally a US-based website. We'll go to the homepage here for iLaw Connect. It's a site to find lawyers, mainly based in the United States and I think a little bit in Canada. So China was doing something there. Maybe there was a blog post shared from the website. Maybe they were scraping it. Maybe they were doing something. Maybe they were spidering it. But we can see that they used it there. Now, if you were on the cusp of your monthly bandwidth limit and China is 100% not a target market that you're catering to, this would be a good time to maybe block that country's access. It's not necessary for Google indexing or Bing indexing. It's not where the majority of your members are or users are, and it's not where your visitors are coming to your site mainly to use your site to find the lawyer. So in this case, this would be a good example when you have the block traffic by country add-on to go to your general settings, go to localization, and block traffic by country, block traffic. And in this case, we want to block China because we see that they're really utilizing a lot of bandwidth. And again, if we were close to our limits and we're looking to ration our bandwidth, this would be a good first step and initiative to take to block that traffic from the unwanted countries. When we come down lower, we do see India and the Philippines. We see things in the megabytes, not the gigabytes. This is really nominal and not that big of a deal when you're seeing things in megabytes. So this is a great place to see where your traffic is coming from, and also that can help you in your marketing as well. You can find out what your number 2 markets are, number 3 markets, and start catering to them a bit more as well. And here are the IP addresses. It says host. It means basically the IP address of the visitor to your site. And we see a huge outlier here. We see one IP address utilized 1.26 gigabytes of bandwidth specifically on February 9th. And if we come here and actually do a quick search, let's see, IP geolocator, we can see that the stars align, and with just a little bit of due diligence, let's just do a quick search for this IP where it's located. So this is in China. So there was some China activity from this IP address. So another thing we can do with this data, again, let's say we don't want that traffic there, we don't know who they are, we don't need them. We can block that IP address from our site. So actually just a quick way for me to do this, I go to search members, and there's always a red button here to block IP. I'll click on that, and this actually takes us to another section in cPanel. It says IP blocker. Just go ahead and paste that IP. I've already done it for this site, and it says that we've blocked traffic from this IP. Now, the thing is, it only happened one day, this IP address. Let's actually do a search on the page. Yeah, it was just this one day, so it was maybe spidering the site or trying to index the site on that day. But again, we can now take action and block that IP. Everything else seems pretty normal. Again, we're in the megabytes here, not the gigabytes, which is normal for normal visitor traffic. The next part here are the robots. So the robots or spiders, those are the search engines and tools that want to scour every page of your site. So Google can add it into Google search results, Bing search results. Maybe you're using an SEO tool and they want to analyze every page of your site for SEO optimization. What we want to make sure is these bots utilize your bandwidth. They do so very efficiently because they're doing this en masse at scale on your site. So what we see here is we can see the Apple bot, Bing bot, Google bot. These are all normal, and we can see they all utilized about the average amount of bandwidth for the entire month, about 300 to 400. There are 3 different Google bots here. If you add them together, I believe you're in the 300 range. So everything looks normal here. We did have a client, and they were hitting their bandwidth limits, very quickly early in the months. And what happened is they had allowed rogue spiders and bots to crawl their website. So you had all these random spiders and bots indexing all the pages of their website, basically running the bill up on their bandwidth. So what we quickly found out, and again, this is good too, as David was talking about the robots. So back in the developer hub, there is a section called robots file. Basically what this does is you're granting access to specific spiders that crawl your site. Like Google is a safe spider, Microsoft Bing is a safe spider that index your site for search engines and things like that. Twitter is a safe spider. So we have defaults here. If you never have been to this area before or never touched it, but you're seeing in your stats some bots that are really running up the bandwidth, the easiest thing to do is, if you've never edited this before, you don't know why it's happening, just click on restore default, and it's going to restore the BD defaults back to just the safe bots that are used by the common search engines like Google, Bing, Yahoo, etc. And if you are using third-party tools like SEMrush or Ahrefs or other tools that you want to allow them to spider your site because you want them to visit all your pages to do an SEO analysis, this is when you add them to the allow list here. So they'll usually give you instructions. The user agent would be like SEMrush or whatever the word is, and you would add them to the allow list on your site, but it will block every other rogue spider trying to waste your bandwidth. So this is a pretty important one. That's why I spent a little more time on it. And if we can identify this, you can pretty much nip it in the bud. Sometimes the things that are running up the bandwidth the most, which are these spiders or bots. A little lower down here, We can see this is actual visitor behavior, visits duration, how much time a visitor spent on your site. So most times visitors are coming and going. I'm not sure if this calculates the spider bot traffic because they're going page by page very quickly. So you may want to even just ignore the 0 to 30 seconds one and then look at the 30 seconds to the minutes one, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. If we can get people to stay on our site for 30 seconds to 2 minutes, that's actually a pretty strong win. So you might want to focus on this number, and if you're not there, you might want to look at your pages and make sure that they're grabbing the attention of the visitors. The next one here, also we had another user, and this shows you the file types that are utilizing the most bandwidth. So we can see here PNG images. I'm not sure what this unknown one is, but this PNG images here is about 147 megabytes. That looks good. We did have a client, they had a huge image on their hero homepage. It was about 6 megabytes in size when it should be just a few kilobytes, about 95% smaller, which means every time a visitor was coming to their homepage, that 6 megabyte image was utilizing their bandwidth. Whether you're on a smartphone or a desktop computer, it was 6 megabytes for every new visitor coming to their homepage. And what we found out was once we optimized that homepage image and made it a more normal size, that solved their bandwidth issues. So it was just one image on the homepage that was really hemorrhaging the bandwidth usage, and we were able to solve that. Another thing here, which is really fun, are the downloads. So if you have ebooks that you're offering on your site, sometimes we allow our members to upload PDFs, their resumes, the menus for restaurants, things like that on their profiles. We can see the top downloaded files on the website here. So again, if you have ebooks or other downloadable assets, we can get a quick snapshot of the hits and the bandwidth that was used for that. So I think the hits would be the actual downloads for those resources here. So you can see how popular some of your downloads may be. Next one here, this is probably the marquee piece of analytics that we want, are the top pages visited on our website. So of course, the top one is just the /, that would be the home page. The number 2 page on this site is the join page. We do see some rogue pages here. These are some kind of like internal pages running in the background to keep BD site operating. We can see even though they are the top pages, they barely use any, they barely have no size to them, average size like 1 kilobyte, 45 bytes. So these are super small file sizes, but this is a great way to see the popular pages on your site. And what I really liked about this is if we click on full list here, I'm going to open this in a new tab, there are actually filters here. So I can search for articles as an example, and it shows me all the top URLs with the word articles in it. So these are the blog articles on the site. So the articles is the search results page on the site. We'll just go there real quick together. And so this site has a handful of blog articles. But we see the number 2 article on this site is this one. It says Austin Web Design. What are the 3 types of solar panels? Unlocking opportunities, PCD farmer. So they're actually getting probably some unwanted signups on this site. But we can see here the top pieces of content based on, for example, the articles here. So you can type in certain keywords here or things that would be part of a URL structure and get a gauge on the views and entries and exits, as David was showing you here as well. Let's go back here. We can see the home page. It has the most entries and the most exits. So maybe they can work on funneling people to internal pages of the site to reduce that bounce rate. And then it goes on from there. So some useful stats here about the page URLs on your site. Again, just a quick snapshot is what you're getting, and I think it's super powerful there. Next one here, we'll do these ones together, the operating system and the browsers. Now, this may not seem too valuable, but based on the operating system, you might know a little bit about your visitor market. So I think Apple users are like a special demographic compared to Windows users and so on. It might not make a big difference, but also what we see here are Android smartphones as well as iOS iPhones here. So we do have a distinction between desktops and smartphones here. We can see the traffic on the site is predominantly desktops, Macintosh or Apple computers, as well as Windows desktop computers. And then down here towards the bottom, we do see Android and iOS. So actually, there are not many mobile users visiting this site. Just based on this, it's showing us that desktops are the majority users. But if you are noticing that the majority of your traffic is coming from mobile, although the sites are already optimized for mobile as far as like expanding and shrinking and moving elements around, what we can be more conscious about it are our calls to action, our buttons and links. If we're on mobile, we want those to be higher up on the page so people don't have to scroll so much on their small smartphone screens to get to those calls to action. It's right there in the top fold, as we call it, in the hero section. So just be mindful of that. If you do have a lot of mobile users, we may want to push our calls to action higher up on the page as opposed to at the bottom at the end of the page, especially on your join pages. One thing I've seen, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but on join pages, sometimes we top load it with a bunch of content, trying to resell them on joining the site. But always make sure to have at least among all that top fold content that you might have, which is informative literature, have one button that gives them an off ramp to just go ahead and join right away. Don't always put it way, way, way at the bottom of the page. Depending on your strategy, having it at the bottom might work well. A lot of funnel pages work like that. They just sell you, sell you, sell you, and then at the bottom, it's that big yellow or red sign up button. However, in my opinion, having one off ramp to just click and join at the very top will probably increase your conversion rates. And you can have multiple buttons at different parts of a page. So just be mindful of that when you're designing your site, of the mobile traffic that's coming to your site. And then here, of course, we could see the browser. In this case, Google Chrome is the top browser. But again, if we see Safari, if we see we have a lot of Apple users, we might want to cater our marketing more for that Apple demographic. It is a certain type of person. So just some things to consider there. And then lastly are the referring sites that are pointing to your site or where traffic is coming to, are connecting to your site from. So at the top of the list here, you will see some search engines. So we see Baidu is here, and Baidu is actually like the Chinese Google, I believe. So that's probably why we saw a scrape or a spider from China at one time. Maybe Baidu wanted to index the site. And although they're not on the robots.txt, there are ways around that to spoof a user agent or whatever they might be doing. So it's not always 100%. But the robots.txt will prevent the majority of unwanted spiders from coming to your site. So this actually makes sense now. Baidu wanted to spider the site. That's why we saw the China. So we may choose not to block China. Again, this site is not reaching its bandwidth limits. So we may just want to keep it open. We don't really need to ration at this point. We can just allow traffic to flow in and out freely. And then down here, we see actual websites, not necessarily search engines, that are bringing or referring traffic to this website, iLaw Connect. So we see a few here. And as David was mentioning, we might see some sites where we might have some synergy. Maybe someone's pointing to our blog post and it's a complementary site, and we may want to do more link exchanges with them or open up a dialogue. So just some more data here to consider. And I think I'm gonna stay on this page here. Feel free to raise your hand. What we'll do, as I always like to do, is we'll move on over to the Q&A. We'll talk about this in a second, but if you have questions about what we just covered, any of the specific analytics, feel free to raise your hand. We can look at it in more detail. And while you're doing that, just wanted to mention, this is built into every Brilliant Directory site. As long as you have that Developer Hub access, you will have access to that cPanel, AWStats, and you can see this data for your site. However, there are more robust, prettier, more granular analytic tools out there. The most common one is Google Analytics. It's 100% free. I'm a huge fan. I've used it for years and years and years. And since Google Analytics, there have been more paid options on the market too. Hotjar, Matomo, SEMrush, there's tons more out there. Basically, even Google Analytics or the paid ones, they're going to give you more comprehensive insights into visitor behavior and page visits. Some might provide real-time reporting. I know Hotjar shows you exactly where people's mouses are moving. That's why it's more of a paid service than just Google Analytics, which is somewhat helpful, especially if you're trying to maximize conversion rates on a squeeze page or funnel page. And then, of course, you have more granular data. You can do date comparisons to see how 1 week performed better than another week. You can actually search for specific page URLs and more. And then, of course, if you have a larger website for scalability, these third-party tools are much more robust and will give you the complex analytics you need to do reporting, share it with your team, and more. So you probably are using Google Analytics. If not, I'd highly recommend it. But again, what's built into BD is a great snapshot, a quick look at what's happening on your site.